So have a good flight if you're joining me. Thank you. Thank you.
And there he goes. Donald Trump continues to run away from basic questions about the failure to comply with the law and release the Epstein files. The cover-up continues. You see him just walking away. He's been running away from questions the entire past day. And you've got Democrats and even some Republicans right now, like Thomas Massie at least, saying that, look, this guy needs to be impeached, and Pam Bondi needs to be impeached, and Todd Bland should be impeached, and this entire regime needs to go. They've violated the law. They've refused to turn over the Epstein files as required by law. It's a crime that they've committed to cover up a child sex trafficking ring. I mean, we all knew that the Trump regime was going to cover up the Epstein files in some form and fashion when the Transparency Act required that the documents be produced. But them to do it so blatantly, a middle finger to the American people, but more significantly, the trauma they've caused to the survivors is entirely unforgivable. You know, and they're trying all of their distractions, what Donald Trump posted last night as he left that bizarre speech that he gave in North Carolina where he kept on talking about, I'm healthy, I promise you I'm healthy. Hey, everybody, you want to talk about panties? You want to talk about panties and pantyhose? I mean, I'll explain to you what I'm talking about. That's what Donald Trump was saying. He was saying some of the most deranged, bizarre things. Hey, everybody, I could point out a hippopotamus. But when he left this like tiny venue that he was at, and he was leaving again, refusing to answer questions about the Epstein files, he was like, Jake Paul did a really good job in that fight with the boxer and Anthony Joshua, and you got to give Jake Paul a lot of credit for his stamina. Isn't it just funny that these that Donald Trump and Jake Paul? It's kind of obvious why they like each other. I mean, Jake Paul got destroyed last night in that fight by Anthony Joshua, who was kind of like toying with him. But this is what Donald Trump's talking about. This is a social media post that Donald Trump's making, praising the loser. And he goes, prices will be dropping 300, 400, 500, 700%. It's dropping so much money that the pharmaceutical companies are now paying you, the people. And I left North Carolina in front of this great crowd. Dude, you spoke in front of like 100 people. You know, it really, I'll do a whole other video on this morning. So when Donald Trump's dad, Fred, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and he rapidly deteriorated before he passed away, one of the things that it was reported that the Trump family did is they created like a fake office setting for Fred so he would believe he was showing up to work. I'm just giving you my opinion right now, and I'm entitled to give opinions under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. We still have that First Amendment right, don't we, to give opinions? They're creating these rally settings for Donald Trump so he can just get out. And I think they're seeing, you know, in my opinion, is the IV working? Is this working? Is that working? Let's just have him go in front of people and maybe that'll make him feel good. Let's bring him out to North Carolina. And it was an unmitigated disaster. And the whole thing too, during the day where they didn't produce the Epstein files, they redacted. It was like 5% of all of the 5 to 10% of what's actually in the DOJ's possession. And from that 5 to 10%, like 90% of it was redacted. And just all of the stuff they were doing to try to distract. They started a war. You know, I mean, they in any normal news cycle, this would be a big deal. But with this Trump regime, it's like, yeah, what are these people doing? Like you had Pete Hegseth, this clown who keeps calling himself the Secretary of War. Not the Secretary of War, you idiot. That's not a thing. You know, you call yourself Batman. What are you going to call yourself? Call yourself Batman and Robin or Marvel? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not a Secretary of War. It's the Secretary of Defense. You should never have been put in this position. But he's like, he posts, earlier today, U.S. forces commenced Operation Hawkeye Strike in Syria to eliminate ISIS fighters, infrastructure, and weapon sites in direct response to the attack on U.S. forces that occurred on December 13th in Palmyra, Syria. This is not the beginning of the war. It's a declaration of vengeance, damn it, a declaration of vengeance. Look, we need to absolutely support, defend, and protect our troops. Anybody who attacks our troops deserves to be brought to justice immediately. Let's be clear about that. Now, did you know that we had troops patrolling Syria? Because that doesn't sound like the beginning of a war. That sounds like there's a secret war taking place and our troops are in the Middle East patrolling Syria and getting attacked by ISIS, who Donald Trump claimed he totally obliterated and destroyed. So why are our troops in Syria to begin with? Why? Well, who authorized our troops to be freaking patrolling in Syria right now? And they're getting killed by ISIS, and Donald Trump claims he defeated ISIS. And this is about vengeance. This is about vengeance? What are you? Some like freaking cartoon character? You go to Congress, get authorization before putting our freaking troops in the Middle East and getting them killed. And there's so many issues that we have to deal with on the home front while they're engaged in just all of this despicable behavior. Prices continue to surge. Job losses up 54% year over year, but Donald Trump posts, not a big deal. That's because I fired all the people in the federal government, so it's a good thing. No, people in construction and manufacturing and pretty much every sector other than healthcare and education are losing their jobs right now. There are massive job losses across the board taking place right now. I'll just go back to the Epstein file. I've done so many videos on Trump violating the law, Pam Bondi violating the law, Todd Blanche violating the law. I'll just be super quick about it right now, okay? The law required that all the files be produced on December 19th. Now, if there was a victim, you would redact the name. That's it. There were no further redactions allowed. The law specifically said you could not do redactions simply because it harms somebody's reputation or a wealthy person was on it and it may cause them embarrassment or shame. The whole purpose of the law is to find out who these wealthy men were who were involved in this damn sex trafficking ring. That was the whole point of the freaking law, to expose the people who were involved in victimizing these young girls in the largest pedo sex trafficking ring in world history. That's what it was about. But the Trump regime, because Donald Trump himself is a predator. Donald Trump himself was found civilly liable for sexual abuse. Donald Trump is on audio tape bragging that he grabs women by their vaginas, he says, because he's rich and they let you do it when he's rich. Donald Trump, who's out there saying he would go into beauty pageants and inspect girls naked because he'd be like an inspector, because he owns the pageants and they let you do it, he would say. What a sick person. But they said, you know what the Trump regime said? They said that, and we warned you, this is exactly what they were going to do. They said the real victims here are the men. We need to treat the men who were the perpetrators, the men who were the predators, the men who are mentioned in the files, other than Bill Clinton, because Donald Trump released released many photos of Bill Clinton and like one of Michael Jackson. But other than that, Donald Trump said the predators are the victims, and they need to be treated as though they were the survivors. And then we're just going to redact everything and remove everything. It's a clear violation of the law. Bondi needs to be impeached. Donald Trump needs to be impeached. Todd Blanche needs to be impeached. They all need to go. By the way, when you went to that DOJ website, it wasn't searchable as required by law. You would search the name Epstein among the files. Again, only like 5% was even like put out there and was all redacted. And it would say no results found. So you would search Epstein and there were no results in the Epstein files with Epstein's name in it. Trump, his name not found. Ghislaine Maxwell, their name not found. And then Donald Trump yesterday, the other thing he did. So much clownish behavior, right? Cartoonish supervillain crap. Unlawfully putting his name on the Kennedy Center, calling it the Trump Kennedy Center, making construction workers change the name so on the building itself is defaced without congressional authorization, without approval, just a violation of the law. It is pure felony vandalism is what it is. But that's what the Trump regime does. They are a criminal cartel and they engage in criminal behavior. I mean, look, You had Donald Trump at that North Carolina event openly telling his cult members he's stealing $1 billion from the Treasury for himself. He said it during that ridiculous speech. Here, play this clip.
Donald Trump sues the United States of America. Donald Trump becomes president, and now Donald Trump has to settle the suit. I hereby give myself $1 billion. Actually, maybe I shouldn't give it to charity. Maybe I should keep the money. No, a lot of people say, do it. No, I don't want to do it. But whatever happens, it's all going to good charities. Is that okay? It's all going to good charities. But isn't that a strange position to be in? I've got to make a deal. I negotiate with myself. From the skyscraper.
And when he wasn't talking about that, he was talking about panties. He's talking about freaking panties. Play this clip.
And I'll say this. Number one, it's very bad, but it sounds a little strange. They looked at her drawers. You have drawer, and then you have drawer. They looked at both. And she's a very meticulous person, you know, like these people. It's just like she'd fit into your group very well. She'd be very happy with her, but everything is perfect. Her undergarments, sometimes referred to as panties, are folded, perfect, wrapped. They're like so perfect. I said, that's beautiful. You know, it's the part of the world she came from. Everything was perfect, no problem. Fold, fold, fold. I think that she steams them, make sure. Just sitting.
And of course, he bragged that he had perfect health. He goes, I have the most perfect health imaginable. Here, play this clip.
They'd say, there's something wrong. But I like to do it. But I had perfect health. And they reported his health is perfect. And they interpret that. And the fake news interprets when the doctor says he's got perfect health, they go, what does he mean by perfect? There's something wrong with the president. These people are sick. Now,
all right. I mean, this guy's clearly sundowning. Clearly. And again, I'm only going to give you my opinion. I have a First Amendment right to give my opinion. Looks like what happened to Fred is happening to Donald Trump, his father. Same age. Alzheimer's runs in the family. I mean, what the hell are we even watching right here? What was that I'll do a whole other video on his rapidly deteriorating health again, and I'll bring in more medical experts. But I want to hear from Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna talking about impeachment on the table. Let's play it.
Appreciate the point. Congress is gone for now, so it won't happen at least until January. Let me ask you quickly in closing. The Deputy Attorney General said he's received no orders from the president to redact documents, to leave his name out of it, and leave other names out of it. Do you trust that?
Well, I don't know what the president has said, but what I do know is that his production violates the spirit of the law, and it violates the letter of the law, and it's a slap in the face of survivors. And so, look, they have underestimated this issue for 6 months. I don't get it. Just release the files, get it over with. The president can talk about affordability and the economy. They're the ones who continue to play these games that make this a bigger and bigger issue. And Congress is talking about possible impeachment. They're talking about inherent contempt for the Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General. Any Justice Department official who has obstructed justice could face prosecution in this administration or a future administration. And the last word, like I said, is going to be the survivors. Americans don't trust politicians that much. They trust those women. And they are going to be back on the Hill, and the country will hear from them.
Congressman Ro Khanna, appreciate your time tonight, sir. Thank you.
Here's what he said the survivors told him. Play this clip.
Drew the line. And you know what? The survivors, I just talked to some of them today. They're ready to come back to the Capitol. People say, what are the consequences? There are only two things that have moved this bill. And that's the two press conferences of the survivors. It wasn't Massey, it wasn't me, it wasn't Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene showed courage. It was those survivors. And that's when the country started paying attention. And I've talked to them. They're ready to come back in January. And so this thing is not over until those documents get released.
And more from Congressmember Ro Khanna here about the fact that the Trump regime didn't produce like anything. horrific. Here, play this clip.
Tonight, Congressman, both you and your Republican co-sponsor, Congressman Tom Massey of Kentucky, have said on social media already, way short, doesn't do it. Has the Justice Department given you a credible, reasonable explanation of why?
No, they have not. And I'm saddened today because I was talking to the survivors. There was so much anticipation for today. They thought finally they are being seen, they're being heard, we're going to have a release. This morning, when the Deputy Attorney General went on television and said he's going to release hundreds of thousands of documents, not the whole thing, Thomas Massey and I texted each other, and we said, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We're not as concerned about having the full release. As long as they're complying with the spirit of the law, at least they're going to release something. But then we saw the documents filled with blanket redactions, documents that judges had ordered to be released, they had blanked out. There's no draft indictment there that actually has the names of other men who may be implicated in the abuse. There's not the prosecution's original memo that we wanted to see released. There are none of the files on Epstein's computer. And we do not know then who these other rich and powerful men were who abused these survivors. And we know from the survivors and the survivors' lawyers that that information is in the files. So this is deeply disappointing. They have not complied with the law, and we're going to continue to fight to make sure they do.
Folks, this is a criminal cartel in the White House. This is it shouldn't shock you though, right? I mean, this guy is a felon. If you ever well, what would happen if there was like a sexual predator, felon, bankrupter, fraud, loser, also with Alzheimer's that runs in the family? Like, what would happen if you put that guy in this situation? This is what they would do. This is what they would do. Steal, cheat, crime, over and over and over again. Cover up for pedos. Right? That's like their... And I think that sometimes in political discourse, sometimes in political discussion, we gamify. We don't, but corporate news gamifies. Democrat, Republican, who's winning, who's losing. Sometimes we just need to talk about good and evil. Good and evil. And this Trump regime and the Caroline Levitts and the Stephen Millers and the Dr. Oz's and RFK Jr.'s and the Pete Hegseths and all these Marco Rubios, you just have to come to the conclusion they're evil. They're evil, bad humans. And their purpose in life is to hurt people. That's their evilness. And we have to stand up honestly for these broader values of good and love and honesty and decency and empathy against these evil people. I just think it's that simple sometimes. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. We appreciate you.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.